Thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Mario Candido. I'm the Regional Director of B1 Solutions Americas, and I am with B1 Solutions since its foundation in 2008. As a matter of fact, I am one of the 5 persons that founded the company, and we are currently in 27 countries. So we know one thing or two about the subject in this webinar. I supervise all the region of the Americas, from North America to Latin America. And we are here today in this webinar with Agustin Olivero from BrightNight and Csaba Farkas from TMF to talk about expansion, exactly, and the challenges of setting up the expansion for success. So I would like to kick off and asking Agustin and Csaba to introduce themselves before we start our conversation. So Agustin, do you mind to go first?
Oh, thank you so much, Mario. Agustin Olivero, as you mentioned before, I am the corporate controller of BrightNight here in the U.S. I have been working worldwide for many years in the U.S., in the U.K., and Latin America as well. Many countries in Latin America, and basically right now in our company, it is a new co. BrightNight is in the renewable industry. Energy, and basically we have the challenge of expansion across Asia, APAC as well, Australia. Would you like to know as well the main challenges that we have in BrightNight, Mario?
Maybe let's allow Csaba to introduce himself, and we can go back to that topic, Agustin. So let's allow the colleague to introduce himself.
Thank you, Mario and Agustin.
Go ahead.
So, thank you. So my name is Csaba Farkas. I'm based in Budapest. I'm the head of accounting and tax consultancy within TMF Group. I'm ex-Big Four and also ex-RSM qualified accountant. And I was always an advisor of technical accounting matters and process improvement matters with several years of experience advising M&A clients, due diligence teams, and international enterprises. Within TMF, within my role, basically there are 3 main services, and this is pretty much expansion, and cross-border expansion is really one of the key, I would say, focuses of what we are working on. So basically we have finance transformation services, we have tax guidance services, and we have ERP localization services. So that's a brief intro of myself. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems that I'm in the middle of 2 generals. I mean, your qualifications are just amazing. I mean, Agustin even didn't started literally saying his medals, but I also know that he has a lot of titles, and he's a very high general when it comes to finance. So Agustin, what are the challenges that you face today with BrightNight when it comes to expanding your business? I mean, you mentioned that BrightNight is a new company. Tell us about, how a new company is kind of envisioning expanding, and what challenges do you see coming, and from where?
We reckon we are a US-based company, and it is very easy actually to find services in the US for expansion within the country. But the main challenges are coming from the international side. From the international side, the main challenges we have are local compliance. Some of the countries where we have presence, like Bangladesh, Vietnam, Philippines, or India, we're not so familiar. In spite of our international titles, we're not familiar with those countries, and obviously we want to make sure that from the accounting and taxation point of view, we meet all the requirements. That's the main one. Obviously countries like India they close in March, or in Singapore, they close at a different time. And the main challenge is actually to ensure that when we are consolidating the information in the US, is always correct and accurate. I mean, local compliance is a big thing. And then at the same time, another main issue is scalability. And how we can leverage technology or which local partners we can use to ensure that our business is scalable, right? I mean, obviously, we always want to put in place, our policies in each of the countries, and we want every single country to work the same way or as close as possible to make sure that we can produce information massively, and we can produce information from everybody at any time, right? And then, if I'm allowed to provide a third one. I reckon it is extremely important, and taking into account we are a US company, it is internal control. Obviously, we are a newco, we are only a couple of years old, but we would like to behave like a public company. And in a way, from the internal control point of view, we need to ensure that every single aspect of the business fulfills the requirements in the US. I reckon those are the main items.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see from your perspective the main elements here, because it's kind of resonating to what we experience as well within TMF from what we experience when we are facing client issues. So I would say that the first point, which we definitely have, or at least what we can see clients have issues with, is related to processes. And this is pretty much when you were talking about the scalability. Also, when you talked about the internal controls, this is all related to really, do you have the right processes to conduct the expansion and the cross-border transaction? Do you have the standardized group accounting manuals? Do you have the internal controls, the right internal controls in place? Very often what I experience with clients is that they don't have a problem with the business side. They just grow, they expand their business activities, but their underlying processes are not standardized enough to keep up with the quick, rapid changes. And therefore, that's usually the case when they come and say, look, we need something to do on the internal controls. We need something to do on the manuals, on the processes, how the processes should look like, whether we can enhance the processes. So it's really reinstating or reinforcing what we are also experiencing. And another element, before I hand it back to you, because I'm sure you have some other reflections as well, but another element is the local compliance, what you mentioned, and we are basically seeing a very demanding requirements from different jurisdictions, different countries, and when you conduct a growth plan or an expansion plan, then you really need to take into consideration not only the bookkeeping requirements, not only the tax-related requirements, but also other reporting requirements such as SII, real-time transactional VAT reporting in Spain, or making tax digital requirement in the UK, and SAFTI requirements in Portugal, GDPDU requirements in Germany. There is a lot of different requirements, and I think for a company to keep up with these new requirements is extremely difficult.
Very, very interesting points, and I noticed that both of you mention compliance. It's interesting because I resonate as well on that topic. We also see within our customers them struggling sometimes to go to local markets and understand local and legal requirements, tax regulations, local compliance, that sometimes it's very specific to a country. I mean, thinking about Brazil or India, those are two, in our business, two challenging localizations. But I also see in some cases that companies have some struggle on expanding when they think about the speed to go to market or the speed to transform. Csaba, you mentioned financial transformation, so I resonate on the word transform. Although we B1 Solutions, we operate more on the business process transformation or the technology transformation, but we hear sometimes the customer complaining that they know that they have limitations on the speed that they can do that transformation. But in the other hand, they also complain when they start looking for a partner about the investment cost they have to do to expand, and how partnering with a partner may be cheaper than expanding by themselves. So they come to us asking for our support, because even though it's an external entity, it's cheaper than expanding through their own means. So we have here, BrightNight that have to rely on other partners to expand. But what do you think? Does this resonate with does your customers also think that sometimes it's less expensive to go with a partner than go by themselves expanding?
Yeah, definitely, and especially those clients who are kind of thinking in the long term. If they find a long-term partner, then I'm definitely under you that they benefit a lot from having a long-term partnership, which can be due to many different reasons. You were mentioning about finance transformational changes. Also, there is a lot of changes due to the tax authorities. So we didn't mention before, but there is the tax administration 3.0, and maybe it's just worth mentioning a few words about that. So it's basically the new wave of how OECD sees tax administrations in the future. Basically, there would be real-time tax reporting, tax compliance, and tax payments. And the bottom line, there is a lot of agenda points on that, but the bottom line of this is that your ERP systems that you are using when you're expanding to other countries, basically those ERP systems should be set up, configured rightly from the very beginning, from the very outset. Because if you don't do it right from the beginning, then you would face a lot of issues in the longer term. And for you to do that better, I would say you must have a partner at any sort of level. You need to have someone who is basically holding your hand and telling you what are the things that you need to think about, what are the ERP setups that you need to think about in that local jurisdiction. And it might not even be so obvious, those settings. So of course there is those usual like VAT requirements. That's always a requirement. There is always a requirement on bookkeeping, any sort of requirement. Usually there is on local chart of accounts and secondary ledgers, but there might be other requirements that you need to do. And there is definitely a wave of or a trend, I would say, where the tax authorities are telling entities more and more often that you need to extract information from the very beginning from your ERP system. And a lot of companies, what we're experiencing is a lot of companies have good expansion plans, but they don't really appreciate the extent of work which is needed for doing that.
So it is safe to say. Go ahead, Agustin. Sorry.
I was going to actually echo what Csaba was mentioning, and not only from the accounting point of view. If you're not working with the right partner in each country, actually you don't know the requirements even to infuse, to contribute capital into those countries. I mean, it is very easy, like in Europe or in the US or Australia, but especially in Asia and some countries in Africa, it is very difficult to send money or even to have the money out through dividends. And obviously working with somebody that can help you out through the process is going to keep you away from problems. That's what I wanted to mention as well, to put more color apart from accounting only.
Yeah, so what I was going to ask to both of you is those, I can see more and more of these compliance requirements, these regulations, but it's really difficult to achieve that without an underlying layer of technology being able to support all of that. I mean, if I hear online tax reporting, how can we make that without the right technology or without technology? So you guys agree with me that this is unachievable without technology?
Definitely. So yeah, Augustine, just carry on. Then I can maybe add something.
No. I am 100% in agreement with you, because not only that the accounting requirements are different in each country. I mean, what you might think it is, I don't know, I'm putting an example. What you might think that certain expenses can be capitalized at the beginning of the creation of the company is not the same in other countries. And then at the same time, when you are calculating the taxable profit of the company, there might be variations country to country that actually you need the technology to do it properly and quickly, because the number of transactions, are counted by thousands, right? And you need to make sure that the technology is helping you out to actually provide all the information to the authorities quickly. 100% in agreement with your assertion, Mario.
Yeah, and on top of that, technology is key also in the ERP projects as well. And I'm not only talking about ERP projects, because now we're talking about more of the expansion side. But in some cases, these two are not separated. So if there is an expansion or a cross-border transaction, then the entity might already need to think about how the ERP system should be set up there. And so it's important to know what sort of ERP systems are used. And also it's important to know whether the ERP system should be having any sort of APIs to the local tax authorities, or should be upgraded to any sort of level to be able to communicate with the local tax authorities. There is a general trend, and we discussed about, or you mentioned about Brazil and India, which are on the sort of complex side. Especially Brazil is one of the most complex countries. We're preparing every year. There is the GBCI index that TMF prepares, and Brazil was third last year. Third this year, first one last year. So it's a really complex country, and there is definitely a need for the technology to be able to be communicating with the central governments, because that's basically the key. And so there should be so companies should also be thinking of also sometimes interfaces which are needed to communicate. And also, I would say on top of the technology side, also it should be considered whether that technology is accepted and approved and certified in that country. So for example, I have now Portugal. In Portugal, a certified ERP system should be there in place. So it's not even enough to have a system from which you extract the data, but you need to have it certified. So basically the government telling you which are the right systems. So definitely technology is a key element here.
It is becoming more and more important, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, Mario.
Yes. No problem. I was going even to introduce a new element, because we just are coming out from this COVID-19 pandemic, and for 1.5 years we were kind of blocked, but business continued. Although we had that moment, that black swan moment in March 2020, but 1 month later things start to climb, and I think we even reach all-time highs, and there was multiple businesses that even expanded, and this during a period where people could not move, could not travel. So how can we explain that one of the biggest pushes for expansion was in the moment where people could not travel? and what supported that expansion? Because people couldn't travel. So is my next assumption right? We don't need people anymore to be able to move in order for the business to expand? Is there any other new, let's call it new or evident options today that are supporting to expand the business without having to make people travel or expatriate people? What both of you think? Because I'm pretty sure that in the last year and a half, BrightNight grew. I'm pretty sure that TMF got new requests from customers to support that expansion. And what do you guys have to say about that? What is your experience?
Yeah, so definitely, I think the overall statement you have in your question is right. So although the first couple of months of the pandemic showed us a big decline in the number of expansions and even business transactions, but then there was a huge growth. I think at this stage the physical location does not actually matter. If you just think about us, I'm based in Budapest and you are in the US and other countries, it doesn't actually matter. So to conduct businesses, the physical location doesn't matter that much anymore. There is definitely a huge trend towards online businesses also as part of pandemic as well. So the pandemic also accelerated that process. On top of that, I would mention that more and more companies are starting to realize that the employees shouldn't be just limited to be working on the location of the employee office. Basically, many companies are letting, and you can think about the big tech giants, Netflix, Google, and other big names. Basically, they are letting their employees to work from anywhere, and to conduct businesses, you also don't need to be physically located there. And I think it's another thought, but I think what actually this triggers really is the whole overall permanent establishment considerations. So we very often see that during an expansion of a company, one of the elements are related to the tax related matters. The other one is usually accounting. But what is more and more common now is permanent establishment. So what are the permanent establishment risks to be working from a country other than your employment country, and what are the permanent establishment considerations that should be taken into account when doing so. And good news is that there is now an OECD I would say agenda or a trend coming from OECD, which is basically saying that during the pandemic it doesn't matter where you are. But what we also experience and what we can hear is that this is something which to be continued, and this is something to be changed in the future, because even the standard setters such as OECD, they see this as an upcoming trend and they don't want to limit this, and they want to let people conduct business abroad and to work from abroad as well.
What do you say, Agustin?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything that you are mentioning, Csaba. I mean, I will try to add more benefits of working remotely. I mean, the big benefit through the pandemic, many companies have realized, as you very well mentioned, that you can continue expanding and growing your business working from home. I mean, the big benefit of working from home is that actually the population of candidates that you can get to your company just multiplies by 100. Okay, that means that you can actually get better qualified people to your company anywhere. And that's one of the big benefits. Then at the same time, I mean, what we noticed through the pandemic, through COVID-19, is that it is extremely important communication with the rest of the organization and how the communication happens in the company. I mean, something where we insist a lot when we are using technology is that, I mean, technology is coming together with the process, and to ensure that we are successful using that technology, we have to ensure that constant training is happening throughout the organization. I always put a silly analogy. I mean, it's like giving an iPhone 13 to my mom. I mean, she's over 70, and I'm pretty sure that she's going to use it like an old Ericsson, right? I mean, obviously, if you want to enhance technology and to use it properly, you have to have the right process and to ensure that everybody knows pretty well when they have to do it and how they have to do it. And constant communication needs to occur through pandemic to be successful with technology, for sure.
So you agree that technology standardization is something that companies, especially multinational companies, should look at very closely?
100%. 100%. I mean, obviously, they need to understand their processes first. They need to understand what the company is going to look like in the future. And based on that, they need to pick up the right technology for them. And to ensure the right internal control based on the needs, on the information needs. 100%, Mario.
What about, for example, global vendors like TMF or B1 Solutions sometimes bring to companies like yours, industry best practices, which sometimes are not the same processes that your company or a company like yours is using, but nevertheless, sometimes companies say, okay, I want to transform my business and I want to adopt best practices, which were not really what they were using, the day before. Sometimes even during an acquisition, they acquire a company and they want to kind of align the processes, and during that transformation, that alignment, they prefer to adopt these best practices. How do you see best practices combined with technology standardization coming as a value?
It is a total success, and it is landing in the country doing everything right from the very beginning, as Csaba mentioned before. I mean, new companies. The main problems of companies when they go to a total different market is that there's a turnover in those countries. I mean, if you don't get the right people come and go, and obviously some of the processes it goes with the people, right? I mean, the big benefit of working with a company like TMF is that actually you are going to be consistent on how you are doing things in each country since the very beginning, regardless of the people. Once the company is more stable, we can decide if we want to continue with a company like TMF or we want to create our own team. But it depends on the maturity of the market for that company at one time, right? But certainly I agree with you that the combination of technology and the right partner is crucial since the beginning to be successful in the market.
Csaba, do you see customers also asking for these best practices?
Yeah, they are, and to your point, Agustin, basically, what is a good practice? What we're seeing as a good practice really is customers first would like to assess where to go abroad. So what are the expansion plans? Which are the countries to be on the map? And then once they decided to do so, I would say the ones which are trying to be lean, they first would like to go with a local provider who can do basically everything from accounting to tax and all the services to them. And that could help them to establish their business first, to first focus on the business, not on the compliance side. And once there is a couple of years which pass, then they can also have a question of, should we have this in-house or should we still have it outsourced, or what should be the formula really? So a lot of our clients are basically in that stage that they have already expanded into new countries. They have already decided which countries to expand into. but they are at the stage that they are growing their business in that specific jurisdiction, and they just basically want to rely on a local, reliable provider, really. And I would say that to have, as you just mentioned, Agustin, to have standardized processes which help a lot for companies' expansions and companies' considerations, really. This is for the benefit of the company, because then there is no need to deal with different processes, different standards, but there is basically one policy, one protocol, which is adhered to, and which is basically best practice approach. What we are trying to, on the other hand, what we are trying to offer to clients is that there is multiple business cases, there is multiple scenarios. There is definitely a way to expand into another country and to ask for, let's say, TMF or end-to-end accounting service with our tools. But we also understand that there might be a case that some of the elements should be still separately kept in-house. In that case, in those cases, we can definitely adopt. And I think what is actually good in this world is that the different technologies can also kind of communicate, so we can adapt to the environments of the clients, and we can use those centralized hubs to support our deliveries as well. For example, we have a lot of shared service centers which have their own centralized transactional bookkeeping, and we take the output from their accounts, and basically we localize the output to ensure the locally compliant statutory and tax reports or tax purposes, really. So I think what is important here as well is kind of to have this flexible approach from both sides, because the everyday changes and also the changes that we mentioned before, changes in the rules and regulations, definitely need and require entities and also solution providers to be flexible and responsive, because there is no one-size-fits-all solution, I would say.
Okay. If I could ask, Agustin, what would be in your mind maybe 1, 2, 3 possibilities of the worst enemy for the expansion in the next year? So instead of us looking at, okay, let's look at the positive side. No, let's ask what can go wrong in the next 1, 2, 3 years that can derail, expansion and then even create contraction. So, Agustin, do you have any idea what eventually in your mind could be a blocker?
For me, the main one is not understanding compliance in the country from the accounting, taxation, and even legal point of view. The company, and I have seen that in some countries in Asia, the company might face penalties if not doing things the way that the locals do. That's one of the major concerns that actually help the conversation. Then at the same time, it depends on the industry. In my industry, there is a lot of vendor turnover. Okay, and then at the same time, the other thing is that we deal with local vendors, not working with the right partners in those countries, and not liaising with them the proper way could actually jeopardize the future of the organization. We're not going to develop, or we're not going to work well with local authorities or with local banks. We need to ensure that all the information that we have in our systems are spot on from the compliance point of view. And if we're not working, if we don't have everything spot on, we are going to have difficulties to finance projects or to sell projects or to actually develop anything. I reckon those are the two major items. At the end is information and making sure that you are doing things right.
Csaba, do you have any idea what can be a roadblock in the next 1, 2, 3 years to kill the expansion journey that we have seen in the last years?
Yeah, I would mention two things. One is processes. I mean, of course, agreeing with Agustin, compliance as key because you need to be compliant. But for you to be there, I think the first matter of priority really is to have the right processes in place. So I think processes should be well documented, the roles and the responsibilities and the data used should be all well documented, and the individuals, the finance colleagues should be trained on those. Even with bigger firms, what we can experience at this stage is that they have a lean finance function of only a couple of individuals, but still there can be many things which can go wrong if they don't have a clear sort of process documentation, and to do it like later, it's much more, I would say, much more time consuming, and you need to take much more or make much more efforts to do so. So I would say that the first point would be that, because if there is an ever-changing environment, you need to have something which is standard, which is really the processes, and you cannot even have only like a shift and lift and shift approach in your finance transformation changes or processes. So you cannot just basically simply copy one process from one country to another one. For the reason, as just Agustin mentioned, there are different compliance requirements. So I would say that the key inefficiency and the key discrepancy and risk would be related to processes and process documentations. And that's one of the key reasons why we also, before onboarding a new client, what we are trying to achieve really always is to have a first diagnostic review of the current, I would say, climate and the current state of the processes. So processes is the first one. And I would definitely say that ERP localization. So all these changes that we are mentioning here with the compliance requirements, with the more and more requirements, e-invoicing, e-filing, e-audits, real-time tax reporting, upstream taxation and tax administration. All these changes are showing to one direction, which is basically companies would need to use an ERP system with the right processes and in a way which is localized with the local compliance considerations that Agustin mentioned. Without the right ERP setup, and I think that is, so to answer your question, that is, I would say, the key for the next, I would say, 5 years. For example, just an example from the UK, making tax digital. Making tax digital is basically a requirement for UK entities to pull the data from their ERP or accounting systems directly without any sort of manual interventions. And of course, there is some delays or there is making tax digital for corporate income tax as well, but this is coming, and corporate tax would come from 2026. So and also other countries are showing interest in their digitalization of tax administration. And if it's not set up rightly in the ERP systems, then I think an expansion plan would be very difficult from a compliance perspective. You want to be focusing on the business, but you don't actually really want to be focusing on the compliance. And for you to do that, you need to have the right setup. So you have to be reliant on the setups, and that's it. And that's really the angle the OECD is taking and the tax authorities are taking at the moment.
Nice. Agustin, let me ask you something. Where in your industry and specifically in your company, where have you seen in the world the biggest expansion? Asia, Europe, Africa, Latin America, US. Where have you seen that expansion? And I'm going to throw the same question to Csaba as well.
I mean, it has to be, from the business point of view, it has to be Asia. I I mean, some of the countries, the level of energy consumption in those countries is increasing, and then at the same time there is a huge demand on using clean technology in those countries. I mean, I think like maybe more than half of the population is Asia, is China, is India. I mean, and some of the countries, they are pretty big though, like Indonesia or Bangladesh or Philippines. We're talking countries with over more than 100 million people each, with lots of needs, and from the economic point of view, high growth. It has to be Asia. But then, I mean, at the same time, from the higher return point of view, although, I mean, I reckon that it could be some of the countries in Africa as well. Okay, but this is from the growth point of view, with more possibilities and high growth.
Yeah, the question is more like try to identify in the map where the expansion is happening. So Csaba, what have you seen now? Not so much on the energy side, but where have you seen from your customers or especially your new customers that expansion demand coming more?
I would say for us it's mainly between US and Europe. So of course we also have some cases in India and China, but I would say that to the highest degree it's between the US and Europe. And the reason, and what I found the reason probably is because there is, say, still less, I would say, cultural gap between those areas, and basically if there is a US client, they would definitely, as a first thing, they would just think of, okay, expanding into Europe because we might be able to sell our services or our products there as well for a good price, and vice versa. But I'm not saying that it doesn't happen from Asia to Europe and from Europe to Asia. But from my experience, there's many clients which are expanding into Europe, having for tax reasons, sometimes establishing a location in Ireland, for example, and then they are expanding into other countries. Ireland is still in the EU, so it's a good location to do that. And of course, now due to Brexit, there is another level of complexity. So what we experience as well a lot is even within Europe, there are many different complexities and level of I would say areas of considerations between the UK and Europe. So there is also a lot of expansion still there, but I wouldn't call it like a genuine expansion, because there are usually cases where a company had already a setup in the UK, but there are some certain changes and they need to adapt to those. But definitely I would say Europe and the States, and also we have some between Asia and Europe as well. So those are the main focuses.
Okay.
And sorry, no, just to add another point. Within Europe, basically this is 3 countries mainly. So Netherlands, Ireland, and the UK. So this is mainly the key focus, what we're experiencing at least.
I see. So I can read between the lines that expansion is not due to, the supply chain crisis that we are facing in the last 1 year and a half.
I don't think yet, but it might come. So I'm sure it would come as well, which is related to the point that Agustin was mentioning. So probably there would be a lot of changes there, radical changes there, I would say. The supply chains would be shortened, and there might be a lot of expansions coming from Asia to Europe and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm bringing this point because I think 5 years ago there were 25 aluminum plants in the US, and 2 years ago there was only one, and then the tariffs came between the US and China, and suddenly 5 new plants of aluminum were raised in the US. So I can see business flows moving out from China, going to Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia. But I believe that even the Suez Canal issue are kind of creating a new perspective of the dependency of these long supply chains between Europe and the source of those products, or between the US and the source of those products, and eventually they will want to bring those sources of products closer to the destination of those products, and that itself may create focus of expansion, although it's not an expansion far away, but closer expansion, I would say. Would you say that we may be in the verge of seeing that expansion closer instead of in the Far East? Csaba, you first.
Yeah, I would say so. So as I said, probably it's also a trigger of COVID as well, and the recent changes that are happening. There is definitely a change and a trend towards that as well. So I would be in line with you. Yeah.
Okay, Agustin, would you also agree, or do you think this is irrelevant, and sooner or later the market will adjust itself?
I think that the number of consumers is growing rapidly in Asia. That's what I'm thinking, and then at the same time the population in Europe and the Western world is stable, very stable. That was, from my point of view, that's why I think things are going to grow in the Pacific, right? But I agree with everything you are saying, but more in the medium term, not in the long term.
I see. Okay, so I think it's time for us eventually to open the webinar to questions. I think we already cover the main points regarding expansion and the perspectives that BrightNight and TMF and B1 Solutions have from expansion challenges, upcoming years. So, Lucille, do you want to share with us if there are any questions from any of the audience?
Absolutely. So there are a couple actually. So first,
I hope that all of them are for Agustin and Csaba.
Actually, I think they are a bit for all of you. So we have 4 questions. Maybe each one of you can answer one. So how do you keep a good communication between the different spots on the world, especially about company, politics, etc.? And it was linked to when you were speaking about working remotely with the challenges of the COVID. And then a question that is linked to that is also what, in your opinion, is the downside to home office in this context? What did you see, how it impacted your business and your day-to-day life, and how did you adapt to mitigate the influence on your team? So that's a full one.
That question cannot be for me because I always work from home office. That should be for Agustin that is new to home office.
I can see the transition. March last year when we were sent home, I thought, that how are we going to do it? But basically, the two main points that has made us successful through the current situation is communication. And currently, the tools we are using all the time is Zoom and Teams work, just to be available through those tools all the time. And then at the same time, not only with employees, but with outside, partners, is to make sure that there is a a full understanding of the expectation and checkup points at any time. I do audits all the time with PwC or with Big Four, and basically, we have to make sure that the communication, even with them, is happening, and expectations are met at any time. I reckon that staying home is here to stay. And then the downside that you mentioned. When that communication doesn't happen like timely, obviously you can leave the employee thinking or being confused about how things are going in the company. When that communication is not happening, you might misrepresent the reality of the situation. It happens even to me. Sometimes I just see an email without any color, I'm thinking, hey, what's going on here? I might be totally confused until I talk to somebody. You have to, when you are a manager and you are dealing with people, communication, expectation, those two things are the main thing. That's what I can tell. That's what I can tell in a few minutes. I hope I answered the question.
Think so.
And
next, yes.
Oh, sorry, no, I just wanted to say that maybe if I can just add that probably here also policies are really important to have the right sort of standard procedures and policies in place to handle the situation, because what I experience is many employers, so maybe the employees are ready for this or they think they are, but the employers might not be already ready for this, and there is this procedural issues relating to applying for and approving requests to work flexibly and remotely. And I just want to say one final note on that is that perhaps the way forward is somewhere around hybrid working, so not even just fully remote working, but somewhere between. So I would say, and that can vary from one day to the office week, or maybe 1-2 days in 2 weeks or a month. But I think there would always be some level of office presence as well. So more than during the biggest time of COVID, I would say. But of course, I cannot see in the future, but that's my personal feeling and experience.
When I said expectation, I meant policies as well, by the way. I meant like protocols, policies to make sure that we know what's going to happen, right? Anyhow, sorry, I wanted to add that as well. Yeah. So, sorry, Mario.
Good point. No. I was just going to say good comments, good points. I have not a lot to say about this because I work from home since 2007, so I don't even remember not working from home, except when I'm in a customer. So it is what it is. For me, it is here already for several years. So
And interesting, Mario, because I was also speaking about the hybrid working, but within TMF it's the same. So we've been working before pandemic. It was like that.
Yeah, but as managers, we need to ask ourselves how we keep everybody engaged with the company at any time, even working from home when you have all the distractions, right? Like you have children, and you have responsibilities in the house as well. And even though, I do think with the things we are talking about in here, you can get not only good performance, but engagement as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Lucille.
Then we have Sarah asking retrospectively, if you could have done something different from the starting point of your journey, what would have been? So,
wow, which journey? My journey, my life. From the company point of view. Or?
I could even do a webinar just talking about that, because 15 days after we started B1 Solutions, Lehman Brothers collapsed, and that was a disaster for us for a year. So we even had to cut our salaries 50%, not to fire anyone. So for a year, so that itself would be a webinar just for me to tell that story, that those 2 first years. But I don't know what I would have done different. That's a very tough question. What I can promise from my side is that I can think about that, and if Lucille have your contact, I don't mind to reach out to you and talk to you about what I could have done different, or even try to schedule a webinar to, what I would do different on my journey since 2008.
That could be a great webinar for next year for series. So let's put a pin on that, and maybe so Sarah, you'll have a deeper and most fuller answer next year. But she was speaking professionally, she mentioned. Okay.
Yeah, sure, so, of course, me too.
Of course. Then, okay, we have another question from anonymous someone, which is what are the different local rules that should be considered in ERP localization exercise, and how long does a usual ERP localization project take? So I trust that's more for you, Mario.
No, as a matter of fact, I would say that it may be more for TMF, because TMF does the ERP localization. We implement the system. We don't localize the system.
Yeah. So I think for the first question, which were the different local rules. So there are, I would say, there are different layers to that question. There are rules regarding the, let's say, storage and content requirements. What should be stored? What content should be stored? Whether physically or only electronically? For how long? So I would say that's one layer. Another one is what type of information and what type of data is required. So what are the actual local accounting and tax rules? And those are the considerations that Agustin was referring to. So what are the different VAT? What are the different accounting-related compliance matters? Like in France, there is the VAS2 requirement, or GDPDU in Germany, and there really loads of different local requirements. And I would say that another layer would be the local rules regarding the ERP systems, whether and how should they be certified. So yeah, those would be the main, I would say, the main layers that should be considered. And the other question was how long it takes, right? So how long the ERP localization takes. So I guess it actually depends on the country the company is expanding into, because it depends on the specific rules and compliance requirements. If there is the right knowledge, in-house knowledge and skills and expertise, I would say that it can take relatively quickly, so like maybe a couple of weeks. But then I think an important element which maybe we haven't touched upon yet is training. And training is a key in terms of ERP localization, in terms of cross-border transactions, in terms of working from home. So there is training, and training is extremely important to know the specific rules, and also to know how the ERPs should be used, and of course, again, process documentation and process mapping. So those things all together combined, that I would say that it takes on average a month to localize one country. But then I think there is this element of embedding and really owning this program and this project. And this goes for not only the localization, but also for the usual cross-border transactions and new processes.
Yeah, from our side, not to localize a country, but to implement the localization with the company. It really depends of the size of the company, but that can go between 4 months for a very small subsidiary to 6 months to a medium subsidiary, up to 12 to 15 months for a bigger subsidiary to do the implementation, training everybody, preparing to go live, migration from the legacy system, and support after go live for a month. the first month close that we do side by side with the customer to make sure that everything is done correctly, the first reporting to the government. So I would say that it can go between, from our perspective, from our side, from the implementation of the system, between 4 to 15 months.
Yeah, indeed, and the shadowing, I think that's what you are referring to.
Yes.
That's extremely important as well. So when there is the reporting deadline, there should be someone behind who is helping there live. You are doing this, but still someone is there to support you. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Mario.
Okay,
well,
Lucille.
Thank you. I think we don't have enough time to answer the last question.
Okay.
Except if you want to take it.
Why not? I mean,
we are here.
Agustin, Csaba?
I mean, it depends on the question, but...
Exactly. If it is the meaning of life from Monty Python's, it will be difficult.
Okay, so that's another one from Renato that is asking, how can you make a more dynamic finding process in your looking for partners? When you're looking for partners, as you mentioned during the call, what key maybe are you looking for to finding like a key relevant partner?
So is this a question to BrightNight or TMF? I assume it's for one of them. Maybe for BrightNight. I'm not sure.
Maybe Renato, you can type in the chat if there is everyone. Okay, everyone.
Okay.
So.
Well, I can start from B1 Solutions. We very rarely we use local partners because we have people in 27 countries. And then inside of each country, we have multiple resources in multiple cities. So I don't even know how many cities we have people in. So we have customers in 60 countries, and from those 27 countries where we are, we can travel our resources and implement this is one of the biggest values our customers look at us. It's that we don't subcontract. They hire us and we do our job with our own resources. They contract directly companies like TMF, and we partner with TMF, but then it's not our partner. It's the partner of our customer. But we partner with TMF like we partner with Accenture or Deloitte, with some other customers. But you know, since we operate in the SAP area, we rely a lot in SAP when we need to look for a partner. SAP as a say to say, okay, partner A or partner B can be a good option. But our experience in 60 different countries, we usually know all the partners that can help us do our job. But I throw the ball now to Agustin, and he could eventually answer from his point of view how he finds partners.
I mean, at the end, we need partners that is going to help us to meet our strategic goals and objectives of the company. I mean, obviously, there are different drivers that can be taken into consideration. But at the end, bottom line is somebody that is going to help us, that has the ability to understand the needs we have and have fast. I mean, we are in a very fast working environment, and somebody that can provide solutions quickly and something personal is I usually prefer to work with partners that can tell me what I don't know. I mean, I'm not just, paying, or my company is not paying something to somebody to do something. It's just I am paying to somebody to make sure that can provide the best solution possible, even if I didn't think about it, right? And I always drive conversations with partners to ensure that we are covering every single angle. I mean, I'm looking for a partner, not a supplier. I mean, somebody that we can grow together, and we can find a win-win situation together, basically. I mean, I hope I'm answering the question.
I think.
Csaba, do you want to take?
Yeah, maybe just one sentence is that we trying to base our relationships on three key pillars. I would say first one is, of course, to ensure compliance with local accounting and tax rules, but more importantly, to really provide information for decision making for management, which is resonating to what Agustin is saying, and also, I guess another third element is really to mirror the client developments and any changes in the client environments and volumes and reporting expectations, really. So to set up this relationship in a way that we can adhere to those as well. So that's
okay. Thank you,
side.
Lucille.
All right.
The ball is on your side now.
Okay,
We can answer.
No more questions?
There's no more question. So you did it all.
Okay, so you want to say the last words, or?
I leave it to you, Mario.
Okay, so thank you very much, Agustin, and thank you very much, Csaba. Thank you very much, Lucille, and also and especially thank you very much to all the people that attend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.